Okay, Corryn, welcome to The Latter End. This is episode 5. It's a pleasure to have you on. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome. I'm very excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I got a lot of interesting questions to ask you, a lot of business-related questions, and there's questions about your professional journey and some mindset stuff as well. So I think this is going to be a great conversation. I'd like to commence, though, with you just telling us a bit about yourself personally and about your professional journey. If you can just give us a bit of a background there.
Yeah, most definitely. I'll give you the short version of the long story. So the short version is in 2018, I had what people call a quarter life crisis. I was about 25, 26. So wasn't quite a midlife crisis, but it was a quarter life crisis. And what that crisis was all about is I recognized that I had built a very good corporate career for myself. I had a lot of certifications. I had a lot of designations. Yet deep down, I really wanted to run my own company. And so working for someone, working corporate, I won't necessarily say where. You can obviously look me up and find out where I was working. And I felt like they were pushing money over people. It was very money focused, very sales focused, and that's just very far from how I operate. So it started eating away at me. And slowly but surely, I realized, you know what? If I'm actually going to start a company, do something different, I need to do something different, obviously. So I did the one thing that they tell you not to do. I left a corporate career with absolutely no plan. Not only did I have no plan, I had zero business experience, zero sales experience, and absolutely no network. So I really jumped into the deep end without knowing how to swim. And slowly but surely, I recognized not only did I not know what I wanted to do with my life, I also didn't know who I was. I was very lost because I tied my whole self-worth to my career. So in the middle of figuring out, okay, what do I want to be doing? I was also figuring out who I was. And I ended up tripping over the science that I now coach and train in. I was working 3 jobs at the time just to get by, living paycheck to paycheck, so that way I could pay my bills. And I entered into this training having absolutely no idea what it was, no idea if it was actually going to work for me. Little did I know that it was neurolinguistics programming, which is the science behind human behavior and success. I recognized a couple of things. One, I'm the common denominator in my life. So where I go, I tend to follow, and the only limits that exist are the ones that I put on myself. So if I can get out of my own way, then I'll be able to achieve whatever it is that I want. I also realized that in business, everything that we do is with and through people. So if I got really good at working with other people, I'd be good at sales, I'd be good at management, I'd be good at leadership. So I'd be set. So that was a big pull as to why I jumped into NLP. Quite honestly, within 8 months, I completely transformed my life. I was showing up differently. I was thinking differently. The behaviors that I was deploying in the past were no longer holding me back. And I honestly felt like a completely new person. So at the beginning of 2020, in January 2020, after becoming an NLP master coach and trainer, I decided that I was going to launch a live in-person training company. So I launched Evolution Room in January of 2020, and my very first in-person training was the end of March. Everyone listening to this remembers that we went into lockdown the middle of March. So my first introduction into entrepreneurship was a global pandemic, right? So I did a lot of adapting. I did a lot of pivoting, being very transparent. I hid for about 2 weeks because I had no idea what I was going to do. And I realized, if it's going to be up to me. And I hit the ground running. I went to every networking event that I could. I really started to make a name for myself. And in 2021, we did our first training. Within 18 months, I replaced my corporate salary in one single day. And I was making like multiple 6 figures within my coaching company very, very quickly. So we kept scaling, kept growing. In 2023, I got my commercial space. So I have a commercial office down here in San Diego. So that way we can facilitate all of our trainings here in San Diego in a very success-inducing environment. And we've been growing ever since.
That is awesome. I'll get to talking about your entrepreneurial endeavors and your journey as an entrepreneur and as someone who took that risk of, quitting a job that was probably a stable corporate job in which you had benefits and you probably had a pretty good trajectory if you had stayed in that. I'll get to why you left. We'll dive further into that. But just to kind of stay on that corporate journey that you had, although it may have been a finite period of time in which you had that journey, what did you learn as a corporate employee that may be transferred over, and also as an SDSU grad?
Oh, most definitely. So I learned a lot from working in corporate, and SDSU. So my background, I graduated with a bachelor's degree in business with an emphasis in finance. I love school. I've always been a book nerd. My mom always said, you're book smarts, not street smarts. So getting into entrepreneurship, I needed to learn the street smarts. To your question though, I learned a lot from corporate. I was never in a management position when it came to corporate. So I was always being managed by other people. When I was a client service associate, I had 4 different advisors that I was working with, and all 4 of them had very different management styles, in addition to like the head manager who ran the office. So I had 5 different experiences of management, and I was able to kind of sit back and assess, okay, what did I like about the certain management styles? I had one woman who, she was very heart-centered. So she constantly asked me, where do you want to be? What type of work do you want to be doing? Do you enjoy doing this work? Can I give you more work to do? Right? So she was very inquiring about my own growth, which I absolutely loved. So now, being in my position as a leader for my team, I'm constantly doing that, right? Checking in with my team. Where do they want to grow? Being under those 4 advisors, I was able to learn, okay, how are they treating their clients? What are they doing to maintain this book of business that they've had for so long? Because they're obviously doing things right. And the number one thing that I saw and heard across the board was integrity, right? Being a person of your word, following through on what it is that you say you're going to do. Number 2, like exceeding expectations. One, knowing what the client's expectations are, but then exceeding them. I would say those are definitely some of the components of being in corporate that just added to my toolbox, right? Because if I'm aspiring to run a company, well, I was in the role of being an employee. I know what it's like with the employer. So I want to make sure that I'm a very strong employer. And what can I be doing, and what did I learn? So those are just some things that I learned among many, quite honestly.
Yeah, because I think it's easy to overlook those things. Like, I think that if somebody has an itch to start a business, that's awesome. And that at some point I would urge that person to do it if it's really in their heart, they're set on it, and they have a good plan. But, I think that sometimes starting at a corporate level job, there's a lot of business related skills you can learn.
There's so many. Yeah,
like business operations, and then also the things that you noted of the different leadership and management techniques. So sometimes it's a great start. It's not always advised for someone to just jump right in, although that could be an approach, and it could work, but it's all circumstantial.
I tell people all the time, because I do talk to a lot of individuals that are in corporate and they say, I want to start my own company. I never advise that somebody does what I did. Like, it was not sunshine and rainbows, right? I had some savings to live off of, but I had bought my house 2 years prior. I had bills to pay. It was extremely stressful. I do not suggest taking that leap into nothingness. Come up with a strategy. And Danny, to your point, start to step back and ask yourself, what can I learn from this situation that I'm in now? I didn't even touch on the systems and the processes that you mentioned, right? Corporate is huge for systems and processes. And so many business owners just fly by the seat of their pants, like fingers crossed, money's just going to come. This is very far from the case. You want to build a business that pays you like a business, not a hobby that costs you like a hobby. So if you're in that corporate space listening to this and you have that itch, that's amazing. Come up with that exit strategy, right? Do it on the side, so that way you don't have that stress of money and that pressure. I don't recommend doing what I did. I tell people all the time.
Yeah, totally. Well, that kind of leads me to my next question, and perhaps it's not advised, but sometimes somebody has is just commandeered by this idea of going into entrepreneurship and being their own boss and building something, of value, and they go for it. And, there's a part of that I commend as well. It takes a lot of courage. I think that success is always inevitably on the other side of risk. What compelled you, Corryn, and inspired you to dive in it the way in which you did, to just leave your corporate job sort of unceremoniously and take that risk instead of what you noted, kind of starting something on the side, perhaps building that up while you still have a stable income, and you still have stable benefits and you still have a stable life financially. Like, what was it in your mind that compelled you? Was it always there, or was it something that just hit you out of nowhere? Just talk us through that, because I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's going to require me to be a little bit vulnerable, which I'm totally okay with. So when I was in the middle of this, I don't know what I want to do, right? Do I stay the corporate route? Do I go do something differently? I was in this like push and pull of what do I do and where do I go? I was sharing really vulnerably to a friend of mine because, Danny, this wasn't something like I didn't tell people how unhappy I was, right? Everybody thought that what I was building was exactly what I wanted because I put that mask on. I even put it on for me. Like, I didn't want to acknowledge myself how unhappy I actually was. And I was sharing really vulnerably to a friend of mine, and I'm venting and I'm crying, right? And I'm just kind of pouring my heart out. And she turns to me and she says, I have something for you. To which I said, I don't want a solution. I'm just venting, right? I don't want an answer right now. But she said, no, seriously, like, I really think going to this personal development workshop, it would just be eye-opening for you. And just try it out and see what happens. So I did. I went into my very first conference seminar for personal development, and it was extremely eye-opening. And what happened was, in one of the exercises, you get really present to time. You get very present to just being present and being with people. And rather than having, all of the noise going on in our head, you're just acknowledging the peace and being with someone. And what occurred to me is time and how precious time is. Some people know this in my story and some people don't, that when I was 12 years old, my father passed away very suddenly. He was in and out of my life up until 12 years old. And then around 6 months before he was brought back into my life, it was honestly the highest point in my life of, okay, my dad is back in my life. This is so great. And then he was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma cancer. And within 6 months of that diagnosis, he passed away very suddenly. And I'm 12 at the time. He was 36 years old. When you're 12, 36 feels so ancient, right? Like, you just feel like 36 is so old. Well, as I'm having this quarter life crisis, I'm 26 years old. And I, for the first time, realized how young he actually was. And since that moment, I've always lived by this motto of time gives no refunds. And quite honestly, it hit me like a 2x4 to the face. And I was like, what am I doing with my life? This is not what I want. This is not who I say that I am. And I went in on Monday and I left. So that was really the rocking point for me, and a motto that I always live by of time gives no refunds. We don't get it back. This is all we have. And so I decided to jump ship. But like I said, I don't recommend that everyone does it.
Yeah, it's not some kind of advice that you're giving to young professionals, for any professional at that matter, but it was something that you were compelled by and you took the risk. So how was it dealing with that risk? Because I think that's the thing, Corryn, that prevents a lot of would-be entrepreneurs from becoming an entrepreneur. It's that risk factor. It's that in many cases they have a good job and it's a stable job, but they might be feeling kind of similarly to how you felt when you had the corporate job. And it seems to be, and I don't want to just briefly characterizing it, but you felt unfulfilled to an extent. You felt like you could do more and that you had more to offer. You've started this business, and we'll get into your business, and you're doing a great job. But how was it facing that risk? Because I think that success is always on the other side of risk, Corryn. You got to take a risk. So what was that like? That clearly didn't stop you. So how did you sort of overcome that, even mentally?
Yeah, good question. So I always let people, the inside scoop is when I left my job, I remember going down the elevator. We were on like the 25th or 30th floor, and I'm going down the elevator with my box, right? I thought that I had 2 weeks, but I didn't. So I had my box. And as I'm leaving, there's these really wide sliding doors, automatic doors, right? And so as I'm stepping out, these doors open up, and I just felt like God was going to come down and say, Corryn, like, you did it. There was going to be doves flying everywhere. Like, it was going to be this big, like a band playing outside. You did it, And it was none of that. I went into my Nissan Sentra that had no AC, and it was so hot in my car, and I just started bawling my eyes out, quite honestly. And it was like, what did I just do? I just threw away my entire life. And I remember I was in this like delusional state, quite honestly. I was laughing, I was crying, I was scared, I was excited. Like, it was all of these emotions because I just broken down everything that I'd built for myself. And the very next day I woke up and I felt so free. I didn't know from what. I didn't know what I was going to do. But I told myself, if I hold on to just this feeling of being free and knowing without a shadow of a doubt, like, I am going to make my life work for me. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to make my life work for me. That certainty has just played throughout my entire life, and now my entire career. So yes, success is on the other side of risk. And I feel like it's on the other side. How do I say this? It's on the other side of the past version of me. Like, I had to evolve myself, and I had to remove blocks, layers, identities, thinking, right? I needed to really dive into myself so that way I could come out on the other side stronger. And that's what it took. Like, it took just really identifying the things that were holding me back and facing that really uncomfortable mirror of the things that, we might not necessarily like about ourselves, facing them so that way I could shift them and grow forward. But yeah, it was not sunshine and rainbows. That is for sure.
No. Yeah, no. I couldn't imagine it is. And I bet it was absolutely and utterly scary. You had a good degree. You were in corporate finance. You could have been just steadily going up that ladder, steadily getting more and more income, having a stable, when it's never completely stable, right? Like, companies can have a couple of bad quarters and layoffs emerge, but you can argue it's less risky, than the world of business.
Something that I don't want to say surprised by, we have to be very careful when we do something for ourselves and what the people around us are going to say and think, right? Because what happens is, like with my family, they were shocked. They were terrified. It was like, what are you doing with your life? Like, are you sure you're going in the right direction? Like, none of it didn't turn into support until I was, looking them in the eyes saying, like, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to make this happen. Because what happens is people will unintentionally project their limitations on you. So then what happens is the itty bitty shitty committee goes off and you're like, oh my gosh, did I make the worst? Can I do this? Do I even have what it takes? Right? So that was also a hurdle of knowing so well, my family's so loving. We're all in San Diego. We're all really close. And knowing that I would have their support, but I had to get through the tough parts of them really putting their own limitations on me until they really started to see the evidence of what it is that I was doing. So that's also another hurdle.
That's a very good point. Yeah, because people are going to look at you like, what are you doing? You have
insane.
This job, you went to college.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah, and it's like the only way to silence that is to do it and then have results, right? And you clearly have. Let's talk about the mindset, though, Corryn. I'm a firm believer that the mindset is of paramount importance, right? Like, you got to have a strong mindset. And this sort of kind of ties into the NLP as well. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because a lot of my viewers might not know what that stands for or what that consists of. Can you talk about that and also the requisite mindset that is to be had to be a successful entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really good question. So I'm going to answer that question in two parts. The first part is going to be before NLP, and then the second part will be after NLP. And for those that don't know, NLP is a human behavior-based modality in science. So it's the study of human excellence and really the study of people and how we create our world and our results. So pre-NLP, I didn't know what I didn't know, right? To me, mindset was all about mainly your attitude, perseverance, hustle, positive thinking, right? Doing what needs to get done. What else? Mindset was just having a good attitude overall and focusing on what it is that you wanted as opposed to what it is that you didn't want, right? Post NLP, all of that is still true post NLP. Now what I know about human behavior is mindset is more about our programming. And I had no idea about programming. I didn't even know what that meant, right? I was thinking that mindset was all about just thinking positive and being positive. Now it's really about your programming. And our programming is like the easiest way that I can explain it is it's like a playlist that plays in the background without you even being aware of it. So the analogy that I love to give is during Christmas time. We're filming this right now. It's the middle of September. Pretty soon, we're going to start hearing the Christmas music, right? You walk into Target, you walk into Costco, all of a sudden it's grandma got ran over by a reindeer. And then the closer that it gets to Christmas, you're like, I don't want to hear another Christmas song, right? I just want to go shopping. Well, what happens is once you start shopping, within 5 minutes, you don't hear the music anymore, right? It's just you're doing whatever you're doing. And then the question is, did the music turn off? No, it's still there. You're just not listening to it. So that's our programming. Our programming, it's been scientifically shown that around the age of 30, 95% of who we are is a memorized set of programs, habits, emotions, right? It's basically our conditioned self. So when it comes to mindset, now what I know is it's more about human behavior, right? Human behavior comes down to the way that we think, the way that we speak, the way that we operate. It's also our emotions, and the programming that we have really dictates the results that we're going to create. So that's what NLP is all about. It's kind of digging into the background on the unconscious things that we're doing that are creating our results, and then shifting them so that way we can, go where it is that we want to go. So for me, going through NLP, there was a lot of identity stuff that I needed to work through, a lot of values that needed to be shifted, right? In corporate, it's all about security and it's all about stability. Well, entrepreneurship is all about risk. It's all about uncertainty. So I had my nervous system, right, needed to get comfortable being uncertain. That's not just something that you can think about,
Good point.
Yeah, so there's different values that have to be adopted in order to be successful. So I'm very grateful that I found NLP when I did. What I like to call it is influencing your evolution. So you can identify, okay, where do I want to go? And then what are those habits and behaviors that are maybe holding you back just a little bit? So that way you can grow forward.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think just the automaticity of thought, right? Without even recognizing the thoughts that are going on, and you can change the station. You don't need to be lost in these low self-esteem, low vibratory thoughts. Yeah. That are absolutely and utterly not conducive to any kind of professional success in business or even in corporate.
Yeah. If someone's listening to this, oftentimes, I really wish it was as easy as just saying, don't think like that, right? I don't think people are doing it on purpose. Do you know what I mean? It's not like we're holding ourselves back on purpose. You're doing it intentionally. You're doing it consciously. It's just the unconscious stuff that keeps playing. And if we keep ignoring it, it's going to have more control over us than we do over it, right? So a big part of my teachings is really teaching you how you operate. It's NLP really was like the owner's manual to being human, because when you understand how you work, then you can work with yourself rather than against yourself. So if you're listening to this and you were anything like me and you were constantly hard on yourself, beating yourself up, no matter what you did was good enough, you know what I mean? Those are just learned habits, learned behavior. And the really cool thing is it's just a muscle that you've worked for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? You just got to start working a different muscle. That's it.
100%, Corryn. It's really great advice and quite profound as well. You start working on what's going on up here. I think it's always underpinned on raw action, right? Like like there's a lot of new age, go in a corner or close your eyes and think of a red Ferrari, and that red Ferrari will somehow appear. But it's this is in conjunction with raw action towards whichever goal it is that you're looking to accomplish. Because this in and of itself is powerful, but it needs to be done. I'm a firm believer that raw action kind of trumps all, but this is absolutely a massive part of the equation. Corryn, Can you talk about the importance of visualization? I was watching some of your podcasts prior to speaking with you today, and you talked about visualization. I was a holistic health minor at SF State, and I learned about that exact practice from a professor who said he would never do a job interview, a speech, a presentation before, a night before, he would visualize it and just visualize himself doing it extremely well, being competent, the crowd giving him a round of applause, and him speaking with confidence and him being particularly eloquent. He would visualize this, and it always stuck with me. I don't do a job interview, I don't do a podcast, I don't do anything that means something to me without this. How has it impacted your career journey?
Yeah, visualization is huge. I remember when I was in high school, I would play basketball, and my grandfather, he always said that free throws win games. So my free throw, I was about 80 to 90% success rate with my free throws. And he'd always have me like every night visualize making free throws, right? Or visualize the game before the game. And it's really powerful to visualize, because if we aren't setting an intention behind what it is that we're doing, or if we aren't, projecting how we want something to be or how we want to show up, right? Reality is we can't control what's going on around us, but how are we going to visualize our success and how we're going to show up? What that allows us to do is it allows us to make a choice. Right? It allows us to make a choice of, okay, I can do what I said that I wanted to do, or I can fall back into like my conditioned programming and my conditioned self, right? So that visualization, a part of it is you really getting in the driver's seat and saying, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to go, right? This is my intention behind what I'm going to make happen. And then your unconscious mind, which is the part of you that runs 90% of your life, can go, okay, I know what to do now, right? So it makes success so much easier. Now, a point that's really, really important. I'm not the type of coach that's going to talk about like affirmations. I'm not a big proponent of affirmations, and here's why. And I'm also not a big proponent of visualization if you aren't fully certain in what it is that you're visualizing, because of that programming component. So our beliefs are a huge determinant of what it is that we create. So if you're visualizing that red Ferrari, yet deep down you feel like people who are flashy and drive red Ferraris are greedy, or they show off, right? Or if you don't believe that you can actually ever own a red Ferrari, guess what? You can visualize until, what's the saying, the cows come home, right? Until you have that belief and you adopt that belief, then and only then will your unconscious mind say, okay, we're congruent with that. We can make that happen. And that's where I find in the affirmation space, a lot of people get stuck. You can willpower your way into adopting certain beliefs and behaviors. I mean, soon enough, if you were to meditate and visualize that red Ferrari for days upon days upon days to the point where you get congruent about happening, yeah, guess what? You're going to start making it happen. But there has to be that unconscious yes, or that unconscious congruence for it to actually come to fruition. So if you can say affirmations that you wholeheartedly believe and that you can 100% adopt, please go for it. Same with the visualizations, and I would also backtrack and say, if you want to visualize like $1 million company, or if you want to visualize being really high up in your corporate career, and there's something there for you, like something comes up, then get really curious about it. It's a great opportunity to get curious about what that is, because you want to check on your congruency on it actually coming to fruition.
That's a great point, great caveat as it pertains to that, whole kind of visualization mindset, manifestation, thoughts, beliefs, and how that impacts your life. Corryn, I know we're kind of running short on time. I want to be mindful of your time. I know you're busy. I want to give you a chance to just kind of talk about your business and just talk about kind of what you're doing right now and what services you offer. I know you talked about NLP, but I just want to give you the chance to kind of elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So my company is Evolution Room, and we are a coaching and training platform designed to help founders, business owners, or growth-oriented individuals and evolve into who their future demands. So we do that through coaching and training. So I run a full NLP certification training company. Some people listening to this will say, I don't want to be certified in NLP. The reason why we do that is because we teach all of the science. I would say about 99% of the people that come through our training just want to be better and perform at a higher level than they are today. 1% of people, actually care about the NLP certification. So if you're in a place where you've achieved success, maybe you've, hit a certain point in your business or hit a certain point in your corporate role, yet for some reason things just feel clunky, or you're feeling stuck, or you're not feeling like yourself, the joy isn't really there anymore. That's where we come in to really help you. Easiest way to explain it is update. Like you do updates for your phone, we're updating you so that way you can create the success that you truly desire.
Just one last question, and feel free to make it succinct. What advice would you have for really any professional, but mostly, since you are an entrepreneur, for aspiring entrepreneurs, who might want to do what you did? It might not be them jumping right into it, but they want to start a business. They might start it on the side. What's the best advice you'd give them? 2
fundamental things that I consistently lean on that has helped me create success over and over again is courage and faith. So it's going to take courage to change and follow your dreams, and it's courage that you have. And the second one is faith. Having full faith that even when it doesn't look like it's going to work out, or it looks like the cards are stacked against you, have full faith in yourself, have full faith in the universe. It isn't quantum physics, or it isn't woo-woo, it's quantum physics, right? What you're putting out will reflect back to you. So have courage and have faith, and always remember that faith takes action. So many people have faith, but they don't take action.
Does it ever? It does it ever. Corryn, it's all underpinned on that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's all underpinned on that. I mean, if you're doing all these things but taking no action, it's just like raw action is so powerful. And like, it doesn't have to mean that you start and scale tomorrow. Like, just start, do something, right?
Yep. It's that compound interest, right? 1%, 1% every day. Compounds.
It really is. And it will compound if you stay at it. And thank you. I think that entrepreneurs got to see it through. That faith is very important. Yeah. And Corryn, thank you so much for your time. It was a great pleasure connecting with you. I really appreciate your time. I think my viewers will learn a lot from this. We'll, definitely get a lot of value out of this. So thank you so much. Yeah,
you're so welcome. If anybody listening to this wants to connect, I'm on all social platforms, so would be happy to connect. I really appreciate you having me here. I really enjoyed this conversation. So thank you so much.
I will put your Instagram, I'll put it in the description if that's okay. So that way, in the event somebody wants to contact you, they'll have your contact information.
That works perfect. Thank you.
Perfect, Corryn. Well, thank you so much. Take good care, Corryn. Thanks again.